Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. I remember the exact moment when the first report came in. I was lounging by the Olympic-sized swimming pool in the east wing of my presidential palace, sipping cognac worth more than what most of my citizens earned in a year. General Alvarez approached with that look, the one that said he feared bringing bad news. In my 8 years ruling Nuevo Libertad, that look usually preceded executions. "Supreme Leader," he began, his voice tight, "there's been an incident at the northern border." I barely glanced up from the economic report I was pretending to read. "Rebels again? Send in the special forces, make an example of them." "No, sir, it's different. Some kind of disease. People attacking each other. Cannibalism according to the reports." I laughed. Such absurdity. "Are we living in a horror film now, General? Perhaps you've been watching too many American movies." But Alvarez didn't smile. "Sir, I've seen the footage. It's real." I dismissed him with a wave of my hand. Border troubles were common, especially near the mountains where my authority was harder to enforce. Nothing my army couldn't handle. I returned to my cognac, watching the sunlight fracture through the crystal glass. That was 6 hours ago, before the world ended. The next report came 2 hours later. 2 border towns had gone silent. The military unit I'd sent to investigate hadn't reported back. My Minister of Information suggested a communications malfunction, but the satellite phones always worked. Always. I called an emergency meeting in the war room, my hands trembling slightly as I buttoned my dress uniform. I wouldn't let them see my fear. The generals arrived in their pressed uniforms, medals gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Maps were spread across the mahogany table, red pins marking the affected areas. "Whatever this is, contain it," I ordered, my voice higher than usual. "Full military quarantine. No one in or out of the northern province." "And if containment fails?" asked General Ortiz, my Air Force commander. "Then we'll consider more permanent solutions," I replied, not meeting his eyes. "The Air Force should prepare contingency plans, tactical strikes if necessary." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what I meant. Bombing our own cities. Defense Minister Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Before we consider such measures, sir, you should know we're already getting similar reports from the capital now." The capital. My city. The seat of my power. Impossible. "Show me," I demanded, my mouth suddenly dry. The footage from security cameras showed scenes I couldn't comprehend. People with gray skin and vacant expressions attacking others in the streets, biting them, tearing at their flesh. And the victims. They would collapse, convulse, then rise again to join the attackers. "These are monsters," whispered Colonel Diaz, a man who had overseen torture chambers without flinching. "I've never seen anything like this." My legs weakened. I lowered myself into my chair, hoping no one noticed. "Is the presidential bunker prepared?" I asked quietly. "Sir?" Alvarez looked confused. "We haven't initiated emergency protocols yet." "Well, initiate them," I snapped. "Prepare the bunker and my escape helicopter just in case." Rodriguez and Ortiz exchanged glances. I slammed my fist on the table to hide my trembling hands. "Don't be ridiculous. This is some kind of mass hysteria. Or a chemical attack by our enemies." But even as I spoke, I didn't believe my own words. I had seen how those things moved, with a singular hunger that defied explanation. How they kept coming even when shot in the chest or limbs. "Kill them," I ordered. "All of them. Send in the army. Clear the streets." "And if that fails," I turned to Ortiz, "be ready with the bombers." "Sir," Rodriguez interjected, "that would mean thousands of civilian casualties." "Better thousands than millions," I replied coldly. "Better a partial sacrifice than total annihilation." The massacre began at noon. Tanks rolled through downtown. Soldiers fired into crowds, unable or unwilling to distinguish between the infected and those merely trying to escape. The death toll climbed into the thousands within the first hour. I watched from my security feed, pacing nervously in my private office. My soldiers gunned down civilians by the dozens. I told myself it was necessary. Surgical removal of a disease. I had ordered worse things in my time. The mass graves outside the southern desert would attest to that, but something was wrong. The infected didn't stay down. Bullet-riddled bodies would twitch, then rise again. My soldiers reported over the radio that headshots were the only effective method. "They're scrambling toward our barricades like hungry animals," one captain reported, his voice cracking. "Hundreds of them, thousands. We can't—" His transmission cut short with a scream. "General Ortiz," I shouted into the phone. "Is the Air Force ready? We may need to consider more drastic measures." "Sir," he replied hesitantly, "you're talking about bombing our own capital city." "If necessary, yes," I hissed. "Better to destroy the city than lose the country. The pilots are requesting confirmation. They're reluctant to attack their own people." "Their own people?" I laughed bitterly. "Those things aren't people anymore. If your pilots won't follow orders, find ones who will." By mid-afternoon, I received the report that the military blockades in 3 districts had failed. The infected were spreading faster than we could kill them. The presidential palace, situated in the heart of the capital, was now surrounded on all sides by chaos. "We need to evacuate you, Supreme Leader," General Alvarez insisted. "The helicopter is ready on the roof." I glanced at the chaos unfolding on the monitors. My first instinct was to run, to save myself, but I knew how that would look. "No," I replied, forcing firmness into my voice. "This palace has withstood coup attempts, terrorist attacks, and rebel uprisings. Its walls are 3 feet thick. We will remain here and we will maintain control." Alvarez stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, with respect, we cannot control this. The infection is spreading exponentially. Our soldiers are deserting their posts. The Air Force pilots are refusing to bomb civilian areas. We need to consider—" "Are you questioning my orders, General?" I snapped, face flushing hot with fear and anger. "No, sir," he backed down immediately. "I'll check on the bunker preparations." I still believed in control then. Still thought my authority extended beyond human will to the forces of nature itself. But deep down, terror was consuming me. I'd built my regime on fear, and now I was drowning in my own. I made a national broadcast at 5 p.m. Seated at my ornate desk, flags of Nueva Libertad flanking me on both sides, I assured my people that the situation was temporary, that my government had everything in hand, that the infected were being eliminated, and normalcy would return by morning. "Stay in your homes," I commanded. "Anyone found on the streets will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." Even as I spoke, my social media minister was showing me his phone. Videos spreading online of military executions, of infected breaking through police lines, of children being torn apart in the streets. I ordered the internet shut down nationwide, then the phone lines, then the electricity to residential areas, to prevent further spread of misinformation. In truth, I was trying to blind my people to what was happening. If they couldn't see the collapse, perhaps they wouldn't panic. Perhaps they would still obey. By sunset, reports indicated that 60% of the capital was compromised. The infected moved in vast hordes now, drawn by noise and movement. My military was deserting their posts. Those who stayed fought bravely but were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "Where are my bombers?" I demanded, voice cracking as I screamed into the phone. "I ordered the Air Force to strike." Ortiz's voice came back strained. "They refused, sir. The pilots have abandoned the airfield. Most have fled with their families." I smashed the phone against the wall. "Cowards! Traitors! I'll have them all shot." But even as I raged, I knew it was over. My authority existed only as long as people feared me more than anything else. Now, there was something they feared more. I retreated to my private bunker beneath the palace, accompanied by my most loyal generals, ministers, and security detail. My hands shook so badly I could barely descend the stairs. Thick steel doors sealed us inside a fortress within a fortress. On the security monitors, we watched the palace staff fleeing. Some made it to the gates. Many didn't. "Sir," Alvarez approached again, sweat beading on his forehead. "I just received word. The defense minister's security detail reports that he's been bitten." Rodriguez sat at the far end of the bunker, his skin ashen, a handkerchief wrapped around his forearm. Our eyes met across the room. He knew what I would order before I spoke. "Take him to the upper level," I said coldly. "He cannot remain here." "Antonio, please." Rodriguez stood, using my first name, something forbidden even among my inner circle. "We've known each other 30 years. I've served you faithfully. And now you'll serve me one final time," I replied, "by not endangering the rest of us." I watched on the monitor as they escorted him out. He didn't resist. Always the good soldier, always following orders, even his own execution. They locked him in my private study. Through the camera, I saw him sit at my desk, open the drawer where I kept my vintage Luger, and place it against his temple. The feed cut out before he pulled the trigger. Night fell outside, but in the windowless bunker, time became meaningless. The palace above us had gone quiet. Too quiet. On the remaining security feeds, we could see infected wandering the marble corridors where foreign dignitaries once walked. Creatures in torn staff uniforms dragged themselves through the rose garden, where I hosted summer galas. "How many of us are left?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 17, sir," Alvarez reported. "The bunker is secure. We have supplies for months." I nodded, trying to project confidence, but my legs betrayed me. I collapsed into a chair, head in my hands. My body trembled uncontrollably. "Get me a drink," I ordered, unable to look my generals in the eye. They had never seen me like this. Weak, frightened, human. Alvarez poured me a glass of brandy, his own hand not entirely steady. "Sir, we need a plan. The civilian population." "The civilians are dead," I shouted, spittle flying from my lips. "Or worse, there's no country left to rule." For the first time since seizing power, I felt control slipping away from me. Outside these walls, my country was falling. My citizens were either dead, infected, or fleeing. The infrastructure I had built through force and fear was collapsing like a house of cards. I had always ruled through strength, through the belief that I was untouchable, divine even. But gods don't hide in bunkers while their kingdoms burn. A commotion near the communications desk interrupted my spiral of terror. "Sir," the radio operator called out, "we're receiving an emergency broadcast from the Americans. They're saying this is happening everywhere. Globally. The world was ending. Not just my small corner of it." I laughed then, a hollow sound that bounced off the bunker walls. My generals exchanged nervous glances. "So this is how it ends," I said, more to myself than to them. "Not with revolution or assassination, but with the dead rising." I poured myself another cognac from my private reserve. "Get some rest," I told my remaining loyalists. "Tomorrow we begin reclaiming what's ours." I believed it then. That morning would bring clarity, that my authority could still assert itself against this tide of death. I was wrong. The pounding on the bunker door began shortly after midnight. Part 2. Ashes of Empire. The bunker was silent except for the occasional crackle of radio static and the hushed whispers of my commanders. I paced back and forth, unable to sit still, my mind racing with fragmented thoughts. We were secure down here. The 3-foot-thick walls of reinforced concrete and steel could withstand a direct nuclear strike. Nothing could penetrate this sanctuary. Not bombs, not the infected, nothing. Yet the walls seemed to be closing in on me. The air felt too thick, too stale. I kept glancing at the security monitors, watching the palace above as it was overrun. My palace, my throne, now crawling with those things. "The situation continues to deteriorate, sir," General Alvarez reported, his voice carefully neutral. "We've lost contact with all major military installations. The infection appears to have reached every major city." I barely heard him, fixated on the monitors. On my throne room, where an infected in military uniform, one of my own elite guards, was tearing into the flesh of a fallen servant. The marble floors I'd imported from Italy were slick with blood. "Supreme Leader?" Alvarez pressed. "Sir, we need to make decisions about our remaining resources." I spun around, eyes wild. "Resources? What resources? They've taken everything." My voice rose to a shout. "My country, my palace, my army, all of it gone in hours." The command staff exchanged glances. I caught it, that look of concern, of doubt. They were questioning me. Me, their supreme leader. Defense Minister Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should consider contacting the Americans. The international community might have resources, protocols for containing this situation." I laughed, the sound echoing off the bunker walls. Not my usual controlled chuckle, but something high and brittle that made several officers flinch. "The Americans?" I spat. "You think they'll help us? They're probably celebrating right now, watching my country tear itself apart." Colonel Montez stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, with respect, this isn't political. The infection is global. We're seeing reports from every continent." I ignored him, a new thought dawning in my fevered mind. "The nuclear arsenal," I whispered. "Is it still under our control?" The room went silent. Alvarez straightened, his expression guarded. "Yes, sir. The missile command center is on a separate secure system. It remains operational." "How many?" I demanded. "Sir, how many missiles are ready to launch? How many warheads?" Rodriguez and Alvarez exchanged a look that spoke volumes. 17 missiles, sir," Rodriguez answered carefully, "each with multiple warheads, enough to destroy every major city in the region." A smile spread across my face. "Perfect." The tension in the room thickened. Alvarez stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Supreme Leader, what exactly are you considering?" "Fire purifies," I said, my mind suddenly clear with purpose. "We can't fight this infection with bullets or bombs. We need to cleanse it. All of it." "You're talking about launching nuclear weapons against our own country," Rodriguez said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. "Not just our country," I replied, my voice surprisingly calm now. "Every infected area, every major population center, a cleansing fire to purge this plague from the earth." "That would kill millions," Montez protested. "Billions globally." I slammed my fist on the command table. "They're already dead. Don't you understand? The world above us is already lost. The living are just waiting to be consumed, to become one of those zombies." The word felt strange on my tongue, like something from a nightmare. "We have a duty, a sacred duty to cleanse what remains." The officers stared at me in horrified silence. In their eyes, I saw what they were thinking. Their supreme leader had lost his mind. "It's my divine mission," I continued, warming to my revelation. "This is why I was given power, to make the hard choices no one else can make, to save humanity by purging the infection, even if we must burn the world to do it." Alvarez straightened his uniform, his voice level but firm. "Supreme Leader, I cannot in good conscience follow such an order. Neither, I believe, can any officer in this room." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the bunker. My vision blurred with rage. Betrayal. Always betrayal. "You question my authority?" My hand moved to the holster at my hip. "After everything I've done for this country, for all of you?" "Sir," Rodriguez said cautiously, "you're under extreme stress. We all are. Perhaps we should rest before making irreversible decisions." "Rest?" I laughed again, that same broken sound. "While the world burns, while my legacy crumbles? No. The time for action is now. I will not be remembered as the leader who lost everything. I will be remembered as the one who had the courage to cleanse the world when no one else would." My hand closed around my pistol. The room went still. "Antonio," Alvarez used my first name, something forbidden even among my inner circle. "Think about what you're suggesting. Even if you could launch those missiles, what then? You'd be destroying what remains of civilization. There would be nothing left to rule." Better nothing than a world of monsters, I replied, drawing my weapon. If you're not with me, you're against me, and I have no use for traitors. The first shot took Alvarez in the chest. His eyes widened in shock, not at the pain but at the betrayal. For 8 years he had stood by my side through purges, coups, and international condemnation. His loyalty had been absolute until today. The second bullet caught Rodriguez as he lunged forward, his military training overriding his shock. The sound of gunfire in the confined space was deafening, echoing off concrete walls like thunder. The room erupted in chaos, officers diving for cover, reaching for weapons, papers scattered through the air, chairs toppled, communications equipment crashed to the floor. But I had trained for this moment, had always been prepared for betrayal. In my private shooting range, I had practiced for hours each week, preparing for the day when those closest to me would show their true colors. I was faster, more decisive, my aim unwavering despite the madness consuming my thoughts. 3 more shots, 3 more bodies. Colonel Montez, my most decorated field commander, managed to draw his sidearm before my bullet found his throat. Red mist sprayed across the tactical display as he collapsed, gurgling his last breath. Intelligence Director Vargas died reaching for his concealed weapon, his fingers inches from the holster. Communications Chief Ortega fell forward across his console, blood pooling around the radio equipment that still broadcast reports of a world ending above us. The remaining staff cowered behind consoles, hands raised in surrender. Their faces showed naked terror, not of the infected that roamed our country, but of me, their supreme leader, their god among men, now revealed as something far more dangerous than any mindless infected could ever be, a madman with nuclear launch codes and nothing left to lose. Anyone else question my divine mission? I asked, surveying the carnage. Blood pooled on the bunker floor, seeping into the grout between imported tiles. No one spoke, no one moved. Good, now missile command. Access codes. A trembling communications officer pointed to a sealed red cabinet on the far wall. The launch protocols are inside, Supreme Leader, but you need 2 senior officers to authorize. I am the only authority necessary. I cut him off, moving to the cabinet. Inside were the code books, the launch keys, everything needed to unleash nuclear Armageddon. My hands didn't shake anymore. My purpose was clear. The surviving staff watched in horror as I began the launch sequence, bypassing safety protocols, overriding fail-safe mechanisms. Under normal circumstances, multiple authorization codes would be required, multiple keys turned simultaneously. But I had designed the system with a back door, a final fail-safe that only I could activate. Ultimate power, reserved for ultimate necessity. Target selection, I murmured, studying the digital map. Begin with our capital, then regional cities, then international targets. Sir, one brave officer spoke up, if you target the capital. I know, I replied, not looking up from the console. We will purify ourselves along with the rest of the world. There is a certain poetry to it, don't you think? Their silence was answer enough. As I finalized the launch sequence for the first missile, aimed directly at our own capital, I heard a sound behind me, the soft click of a safety being disengaged. I turned to see Captain Mendez, my personal bodyguard for 5 years, his service pistol aimed at my chest. I can't let you do this, he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. This is madness. I smiled at him. You would shoot your supreme leader? The man who promoted you? Who gave you everything? You gave me nothing, he replied. You took everything. Took from all of us. And now you want to take the last thing we have left, hope. I lunged for the launch button. The shot rang out, the impact spinning me around. Pain blossomed in my shoulder, hot and sharp. I stumbled but managed to slam my hand down on the console. Missile launch sequence initiated, the automated system announced. Target capital city. Impact in 14 minutes. Another shot, this one catching me in the side. I collapsed against the console, blood spilling onto the controls. Mendez advanced, his weapon trained on my head now. Deactivate it, he ordered. Call it back. I laughed through the pain, can't be recalled. One-way launch. No abort codes. His face contorted with fury and grief. He fired again, but his aim was wild now, the bullet striking the wall behind me. Before he could correct his aim, 2 loyalists tackled him, wrestling him to the ground. The sounds of struggle filled the bunker until a final gunshot silenced everything. I slumped to the floor, blood pooling beneath me. Not fatal wounds, but serious enough, the gold braid darkening with my blood. "Get me to medical," I ordered weakly. The remaining staff lifted me, carrying me to the small infirmary adjacent to the command center. As they bandaged my wounds, the missile systems continued their countdown. In 13 minutes, the capital would be vaporized. My cleansing would begin. The radio crackled suddenly. "Calling all government officials. This is Commander Diaz from Provincial Defense Force. We have established safe zones in Santa Clara, San Miguel, and Esperanza provinces. Civilian resistance is organizing. Protocols are working. The infection can be contained. Repeat, the infection can be contained. We need medical supplies and ammunition, not evacuation." I froze, listening to the transmission. Safe zones, resistance. My people fighting back, organizing, surviving without me, without my leadership. "Sir," one of the surviving officers approached cautiously. "There are reports coming in from other areas as well. People are finding ways to fight the infected, to survive. Perhaps we should reconsider the launch." "It can't be recalled," I repeated. But my voice lacked conviction now. The divine certainty that had filled me minutes ago was draining away with my blood. My people were fighting, surviving, while I cowered in my bunker, plotting their destruction. I struggled to my feet, pushing away the medic trying to finish bandaging my wounds. "Help me to the surface." "Sir, that's suicide. The infection—" "That's an order," I said, my voice regaining some of its old authority. "I need to see." They exchanged glances but complied, supporting me as I limped to the elevator that would take us back to the palace above. The counter on the missile system read 9 minutes to impact. The elevator opened onto what had once been my private study. The room was in chaos, furniture overturned, papers scattered, blood smeared across priceless artwork. But strangely, no infected. They must have moved on, searching for fresh prey elsewhere in the palace. I shrugged off my assistants, staggering toward the balcony that overlooked the capital. Each step sent waves of pain through my wounded body, but I pressed on. I had to see, had to know. The balcony doors swung open to reveal a city burning, but not dead. Through gaps in the smoke and chaos, I could see pockets of resistance. Barricades manned by civilians and remaining military. Helicopters evacuating people from rooftops. My people fighting back against impossible odds. And I had just sentenced them all to nuclear annihilation. The countdown stood at 7 minutes. The missile would be visible soon, a streak of fire across the morning sky, bringing my cleansing fire to those brave enough to fight when I had chosen to hide, to destroy. My assistants hovered nervously in the doorway behind me. "Supreme Leader, we should return to the bunker. It's not safe." "Go," I told them, not turning around. "Go back to the bunker if you wish. I'm staying here." "But sir, the missile—" "I know," I said quietly. "I'll watch what I've done. I owe them that much." They hesitated, then retreated. I heard the elevator doors close behind them. I was alone now, on my balcony, overlooking the ruins of my regime. 5 minutes to impact. The world seemed to slow around me, every detail suddenly crystalline in its clarity. In the distance, I spotted movement on a rooftop, a family being loaded into a helicopter, the downdraft from the rotors whipping their clothes and hair, children clutching stuffed animals and tattered dolls, parents holding them close with the fierce protectiveness I had never understood, as a man who had chosen power over family. An older man, perhaps a grandfather, helped a little girl board, his weathered hands gentle despite the chaos surrounding them. They would be within the blast radius when the missile struck. Would they see it coming? Would they understand what was happening in those final moments? Would that little girl comprehend why her world was about to end in fire? Why her future had been stolen by a leader who had sworn to protect her. The pain from my bullet wounds seemed distant now, a dull throbbing overtaken by the sharper agony of realization. Every building in my field of vision housed stories. Lives lived, loves cultivated, dreams pursued. The university where students had once studied before I had it closed for political dissent. The hospital where doctors still tended to the infected and wounded, refusing to abandon their oaths despite my orders to prioritize the political elite. The central market where families had gathered for generations, where my own mother had once taken me as a child before power and paranoia consumed my world. 4 minutes. The sun was rising higher now, casting long shadows across the city I had ruled with an iron fist. Below, infected wandered the palace gardens, drawn perhaps by the sound of the helicopter taking off from that distant rooftop. They moved with singular purpose, driven by hunger, but the living moved with purpose too, defending, rescuing, surviving. 3 minutes. On the radio I'd brought with me, more transmissions poured in, more reports of safe zones, of successful evacuations, of communities banding together. My people were strong, stronger than I had ever given them credit for, stronger than me. 2 minutes. I spotted it then, a bright streak against the blue morning sky. The missile I had launched, carrying death to thousands. My divine mission, now revealed as the act of a madman, a coward. 1 minute. I stepped forward to the balcony's edge, gripping the stone railing with blood-stained hands. The wind carried the sounds of the city fighting for its life. Gunfire, engines, even distant shouts. The missile grew larger, its trajectory bringing it directly toward the palace. Toward me. In my final moments, I did something I had never done in 8 years of absolute rule. I listened. To the radio transmissions of brave soldiers organizing defenses. To the faint music someone was playing in a distant building. To the helicopter rotors fading into the distance, carrying survivors to safety. I had failed them all. My response to the outbreak had been exactly what I was: cruel, selfish, destructive. But in their response, my people had shown what they were: resilient, compassionate, determined. 30 seconds. The missile filled the sky now, a harbinger of my folly. I spread my arms wide, embracing the end I had created. May God forgive me, I whispered to the wind. May my people survive me. The blinding flash came first, followed by silence. Then the roar of a new sun being born in the heart of my capital. My palace, my throne, my body, all vaporized in an instant of cleansing fire. In the provinces, survivors would look toward the capital and see the mushroom cloud rising like a terrible new sun on the horizon. Mothers would shield their children's eyes. Soldiers would remove their caps in stunned silence. The elderly would weep, remembering a city that had once been beautiful before my regime, and the infection had ravaged it. They would not know that their supreme leader had perished in the blast he himself had ordered, standing on his balcony like a false god welcoming judgment. They would only know that they had lost their capital, but not their fight. The radio transmissions would fall silent for a time, as the electromagnetic pulse from the detonation disrupted communications across the region. But when voices began to broadcast again, they would speak not of surrender, but of determination. Not of despair, but of community. Not of my legacy, but of their future. Historians would later record it as the worst government response to any outbreak in history. A leader who had ordered the execution of his own citizens in the streets, cut off their communications when they needed information most, abandoned them to chaos when leadership was critical, and finally launched a nuclear strike against his own capital, rather than coordinate a proper response. They would analyze my psychological decline, debate whether it was fear or malice that drove my final actions, question how a system could allow one man such destructive power. Military strategists would study my failures as cautionary examples, how I mobilized the army too late, how I prioritized loyalty over competence, how I silenced expert advice that contradicted my worldview, how I treated an outbreak as a political problem rather than a humanitarian crisis. In war colleges and command schools, my name would become synonymous with catastrophic leadership. But historians would also record something else, a testament not to my rule but to the people I had failed, that despite their leaders' madness, the people of Nuevo Libertad survived. In small towns and rural communities, they established safe zones, coordinating with hand-cranked radios and messenger systems. After the national communications grid failed, they developed protocols for identifying infection, creating quarantine procedures that balanced safety with humanity. Doctors worked with limited supplies, teachers turned schools into shelters, farmers shared harvests to feed refugees. They did what I had never done. They put the welfare of others before their own power and safety. And eventually they reclaimed their country from both the infected and the radioactive ruins of their capital. When they wrote the history of the outbreak, my name would appear only in the early chapters, the false start, the wrong turn, the cautionary tale. The real story, the one that mattered, would be about them, about how ordinary people became heroes when their leader became a monster. The apocalypse hadn't recognized their king, but it had revealed their strength, a strength I had feared and tried to crush throughout my reign, never understanding that it was the only thing of true value in the country I had claimed to rule.